Welcome back for the latest edition of NC Sports Weekly News. Busy on the waterfront as top pros meet in Florida at the Miami Sailing Week Classic. Brazil's Gabriel Medina just takes it away from Parko on Australia's Gold Coast. Team Belarus wins leg 1 of the Nations Cup, but Paoletti steals the show for Italy. Jeremie Beyou wins the Solo Maitre Coq. Senior correspondent Sébastien Destremont reports. Women sailors break all barriers as Hilary and Nashwa take on the Arabian Sea. NC Sports plunge into the action. The Bacardi Cup Miami Sailing Week 2014 was back in the limelight, celebrating its 87th edition and tallying nearly 200 entries in the 6 different sailing classes: Star, VX1, J70, Melges 20, Melges 24, and Viper 640. With 55 boats on the water here in Miami, the Star remains the queen class for many top sailors. The recent failure of a last-minute appeal with an ISAF to save its Olympic career, which lasted for nearly a century, has yet to quell the passion. No surprise if the legendary Grau family came in full force to defend Brazil's strong Star class tradition, with both brothers Lars and Torben sparring for top positions against a tough customer like American pro Mark Reynolds. With such a large fleet, consistency delivered. And with a first and another 2 second places in just 5 races, Lars Grau on helm and bowman Samuel Gonçalves soon led the overall scoreboard. Reynolds with Magnus Liedhall did take the first win and another 3rd place in race 3, but then slipped out of the top 10 in the last 2 regattas. A broken rudder on the last leg didn't help at all, but the Americans still managed a 2nd place in the event. Torben Grau and partner Guillermo Almeida never made it beyond that 3rd position in race 1, but then also never finished beyond 5th place to capture the last spot on the overall podium. The Melges 20s brought another packed fleet to this 2014 Bacardi Cup with over 40 boats at the U.S. Sailing Center and Coral Reef Yacht Club. In an all-American podium finish, Floridians on Ninkasi team led by John Taylor pushed back the Californians on Pacific Yankee and Team Shimmer from New Jersey with Harry Melges on board. The big story in this class, though, was 10-year-old Liam Kilroy of San Francisco, steering his Audi Melges 20 Wildman up to strong mid-fleet position. The battle raged on in the Melges 24s between the Americans on Mickey and the Italians on Little Wing. Skippers Kevin Welch and Nicola Ardito fought to the end, trading places at the top in the 6-boat fleet. Finally, a mere 2-point difference in 7 regattas gave the win to the Washington State team, while 3rd place overall went to Stephen Bojo's the 300 from Wisconsin. In other Miami Sailing Week results, Phil Lotz and the Fort Lauderdale Arethusa team took top honors in the Viper 640s. The Rascal crew from Portsmouth conquered the J70s, while the Brennan family team on Smuggler from Mobile, Alabama raised the trophy in the VX1s. Next stop for the Bacardi Cup will be in mid-July for the Newport Sailing Week Summer Classic. Be there with NC Sports.
Cheers, guys.
It's an honor just to be competing against these guys, you know, like Mick was already champion last year, Parko had already champion as well, and Taj, all these guys that I always watch it on videos, magazine, internet, and it's just weird, you know, like today I beat them. But yeah, I felt really good. Thanks a lot for all you guys support. Super crowded. Thanks Thank you, guys. Yeah, there's so many guys that I want to thank. My dad, especially. He always traveling with me and helped me out with everything.
In a historic first ever victory for Brazil, 21-year-old Gabriel Medina takes the ASP Quiksilver Pro on Australia's Gold Coast by defeating local veteran and 2012 world champion Joel Parkinson in a super tight final marked by a scant .06 score difference. Snapper Rocks continue to deliver for the men's ASP season opener with light winds and 1.5 meter waves. The young Brazilian squad came out strong with Adriano de Souza and Miguel Pupo also making it through the rounds to the quarters and semifinals. De Souza did away with American icon Kelly Slater to gain access to the semis with a strong 16.53 to 12.17. Then succumbed to Parko's a huge 18.53. The Australian had also pushed back Pupo in his quarterfinals, but couldn't quite defeat the entire Brazilian armada on his own. Fellow Aussie Taj Burrows also made his way to the semis, and there too victory was decided on an imperceptible .03 margin in favor of Medina. On another surfing history note, the Brazilian is also the second goofy footer or left-footed surfer to ever win the prestigious Gold Coast event. For the full recap of this 2014 Quiksilver Pro from Australia, with action highlights and interviews with the ASP Tour heroes, catch the next edition of NC Sports Top Story, premiering this Saturday on Nautical Channel. Capturing individual honors with a 2 out of 2, Italy's Stefano Paoletti dominated both sprint races in the F1 season opener at the Qatar GP. But it's Belarus that takes away the first event in the prestigious 2014 UIM Nations Cup as 9 teams battle for top positions on the 24-lap course in Doha. Choppy conditions and several accidents brought out 3 yellow flags as Paoletti took the first win of the day, finishing ahead of Malaysia's Mohammed bin Kadri and Andrei Ovechnikov from Belarus. In a very close battle marked by accidents and chaotic stops and goes, Andrei led for the first half of the race, until Stefano made his move on lap 16 and quickly built an 8-second lead all the way to the last yellow flag on lap 20 that brought the fleet to the finish line behind the safety boats. The Italian also put on an impeccable performance in race 2, leading from pole to finish, and was once again chased by Malaysia's bin Kadri, closing just 3 seconds behind, and by yet another strong pilot from Belarus in Dmitry Vandyshev, trailing by 47 seconds. In spite of Italy's win in the sprints and match race sessions, Team Belarus took overall honors here in Doha and the first round of the UIM Nations Cup World Series in Qatar by a single point difference. For more F1 powerboating action, stay tuned to the next edition of NC Sports and the complete report on Alex Carella's huge win here in Qatar for the regular UIM F1 H2O World Championship.
Welcome to the office. With a superb field of competitors gathering for the 12th Solo Maitre Coq, the slightest mistake can be fatal. The opening race of the season is no exception. Solo racing is never simple. The start is given in very little wind and gives a headache for the many skippers already very well prepared.
It's really about getting back into the rhythm of no sleep and to compare our speed with the best of the fleet.
Sport can sometimes be cruel and selling even more. To dominate 3/4 of the race is not necessarily synonymous with victory. Jan Elias manages to avoid all the traps in the first round and quickly takes the lead of the fleet, but a slightly late last jibe proved to be fatal.
Elias a pas mal dominé, mais
Jan Elias was dominating, however, there was one last decision. A timely jibe placed around the Isle of View, and I took the inside route, which allowed me to win the event.
Using his own words, Jan was probably a little too greedy. He will analyze this mistake that costed him a podium finish. Following 44 hours and 270 miles of racing around the islands, the first competitive finishes in the early hours of the morning. Opportunistic Jeremie Beyou, always well positioned at the forefront of the fleet, wins the trophy.
This is a great victory. It was very intense. We were a group of 4 boats leading the pack for most of the race.
Gildas Mahé on interface managed to finish second ahead of Thierry Chabani on Jedimat Concept and the unlucky Jan Elias. Jerem manages to sail a great race and is relieved to have done so well in an event backed by his main sponsor.
I was quite stressed about taking a beating. I thought, well, if I don't do well in the Solo Maitre Coq, it's not going to look good. So to even win it, it's the cherry on the cake.
Voilà, c'est un joli clin d'œil.
Rendezvous next week, same time, same place. Until then, goodbye and fair sailing.
Sailing gives you a freedom that is the reason every sailor sails. You leave behind on the dock any problems you have at work and you just live in the moment. When you leave behind a wheelchair as well, it's just incredible. That feeling of utter freedom, of the ability to move around, go where I want, when I want. It's the equivalent of an able-bodied person being able to fly.
As this edition goes to air, modern-day disabled sailing pioneer Hilary of the UK and Omani sailor Nashwa Al-Kindi are taking on a very special challenge across the Arabian Sea from Mumbai to Muscat. First on her famous 20-foot monohull Artemis to sail solo around Britain in 2005, and again around the Isle of Wight in 2007, and across the English Channel in 2009, this time Hilary sets a new bar for herself and her teammate in what has now also become an important precedent for women sailing in the Middle East. Senior instructor at Oman's sailing powerhouse team, The Wave, Nashwa is now on board the specially adapted 30-foot Oman sails with Hilary as they tackle the 850 nautical miles separating India from the Arab Peninsula on a 30-foot Dragonfly Sport trimaran. And NC Sports will keep you posted on their ongoing challenge.
It's freedom. You feel free, you feel peace. It's like I always say, it's like yoga, but in a different way. It makes me very proud being a part of bringing sailing to life again in Oman. As you know, Oman has always had sailing in our blood, so bringing it to life gives me the privilege.
"91 legendary dragons from over 13 nations are currently sailing in the Mediterranean right in front of San Remo, Italy, for the 2014 European Championships. Designed by Johan Anker back in 1929, the class has a glorious Olympic past and still draws many sailors of all ages. Nautical Channel crews are now on site for a full weekend coverage to capture these classic racers on the water at their very best. The complete report on the next weekly news edition. Plunge into the action with NC Sports.